There is this horrible practice that happens when you apply for a mortgage and they do what's called a hard pull on your credit. When you're sitting there in your mortgage office trying to apply for a loan and they pull your credit, a hard pull on your credit and they see your credit score, what happens is that information, the credit agencies immediately take that information. This is live. This doesn't take 24 hours for this to happen. They sell that information immediately to like mortgage companies and they're called trigger leads. And then these trigger leads immediately robocall the customer to offer them mortgage products. And they can be very, very deceitful. They'll say goofy things like, "Hey, I'm just following up and offering you better options or lower interest rate." They'll sometimes pretend like they're sort of affiliated with the company that you're sitting in front of. And if you want to know how fast this can happen, so I'm in real estate. I'm a property manager, but I've also been a real estate broker for about 30 years. And so I know a lot of mortgage lenders, and the stories are horrible about how bad these trigger leads can get. There are stories, and I've talked to multiple mortgage lenders, that while the client is still sitting there in the office, they will start getting these calls from other mortgage companies knowing that they applied for credit to buy a home while they're still sitting there in the office. It can happen immediately. If you look up articles on this on the internet, sometimes they'll say it happens, can up, earlier than 24 hours. Yeah, earlier than 24 hours means it can happen immediately. Some people would get 60, 70 calls, emails, or texts a day following up, trying to get them, to apply for a different mortgage product. These trigger leads have been horrible. I think it's the Mortgage Brokers Association, even that industry group has gotten so pissed off about this issue that they've been lobbying Congress to do something about this. Now, how bad does something have to be when your own association that represents you is lobbying Congress to put, guardrails on your own members? Well, it finally happened. Now, this is something that's hilarious because you probably won't read about it in the news much. And the reason is Trump signed something into law that's going to stop trigger leads. It passed unanimously in the Senate and Congress. So that's really, really interesting when something has unanimous passage. I mean, you couldn't even write a law that says water is wet without some people complaining about it. Well, even lefties in this case are not even, I dare you guys to try and complain about what Trump is doing wrong because Trump signed this into law. If you want to look it up, it's HR 2808. It was just signed into law by Trump, eliminating or stopping these trigger leads. Now, it's going to take about 180 days for this to go into effect. So, unfortunately, it's not immediate, but it will go into effect. That's in about 180 days because Congress just takes forever to do anything. And, it allows the corrupt people to have one last shot at trying to make some money. But it finally was passed into law. Now, there's still the do not call list and the opt out list. And I have links to both of those in the description below. I would highly recommend signing up to the do not call list and the opt out list. Actually, it's called opt out. Let me see, optoutprescreen.com. Anyway, I'll have a link in the description below. And also in the description below, I'll have a link to the actual law on congress.gov about this law that was passed. But this is something that finally has happened. They finally did something good for us in this case. They probably got overwhelmed with complaints, both by consumers and by other mortgage brokers. I mean, even my mortgage broker friends hated this practice. And one of the things they would try and do is that while you're sitting there applying for your loan, they would also have an opt-out form that you could submit. The problem is that opt-out form could take 24 hours for it to be, cycled through the system. So the immediate calls wouldn't stop necessarily. Sometimes people thought it would, but really it was just a horrible practice. The robocalls, the auto selling this from the credit agencies just to, vendors happened so fast and the calls would start immediately. Doing the opt-out right there while you're doing your mortgage application just wasn't very effective. I mean, there's this one story about a fireman, and he used his business phone for his phone number to apply for his mortgage. And at that fire department, they got swamped with so many calls that actually disrupted emergency services for a while because there were so many solicitation calls coming into that fire department. There's other stories about older people. Maybe they're doing a refinance because a spouse had died. That's a big story out there on this one. And they just get totally slammed by calls reminding them daily for weeks about what had happened to them. Horrible practice. So you can count on in about 180 days this going down, hopefully a lot. There's always exceptions to the rule. And I think one of the exceptions to the rule is if it's the mortgage lender who's providing the money, not just the servicer, but the mortgage lender who's actually providing the money and the servicer. I'd like a correction on that if any of you mortgage brokers out there know. But there is that exception to the law. So, it's supposed to be that the person that you're sitting in front of applying with, that they can follow up later to offer you, to say, a better rate because you've actually applied to them. But anyway, check out the law, and highly recommend you guys go into the links below, click on that do not call list, put all your numbers on there, and go to this pre-screening opt-out form and put all your numbers in there. And hopefully that could, drain this unbelievable supply of, fake and crappy solicitation phone calls you get. I don't know what it is, but my phone number is my personal number. I do use it for business, but I probably get around 15 to 20 solicitation calls a day. And I know I'm on the do not call list, but I signed up for it about maybe 4.5 years ago. And you do drop off after 5 years. So I'm going to go up after I finish this video and put my numbers back up there again. Because of course these things recycle after 5 years and you fall off the list and you have to do it again. But I highly recommend going in the description below, click on the links and sign up for both of these opt-out lists, and it will reduce the number of calls that you get significantly.